one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
I'll second it.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Hearing none to motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Presentations, Sunrise River WMO JPA amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Sunrise River Watershed Management Organization was formed through a joint powers agreement with Ham Lake, East Bethel, Linwood, and Columbus. Among the duties of the Sunrise River Board is to periodically recommend JPA updates to the member communities. The JPA is more than 30 years old. While there have been minor amendments several times, portions of the JPA remain operational, clumsy, or out of date. Additionally, there are incorrect state statute references, undefined terms, and references to sections of the JPA that are unrelated to the topics being referenced. Attached in your packet is a red line version of the JPA with the Sunrise River WMO Board's recommended amendments. These proposed changes are intended to be a plain language summary of shortcomings and recommended updates. The Sunrise River WMO Board believes it is their duty to provide recommendations but not drive the process, as the JPA is the city and township's agreement. Reviewing any actions on these recommendations will require leadership from the cities and township. Sunrise River WMO is therefore reaching out to the municipalities to coordinate the amendment process with each of their respective councils or boards. Tonight we have Jamie Sherbon, Anoka Conservation District, who will present the proposed amendments and outline the next steps in the process of amending the JPA. At the conclusion of his presentation, we can review and discuss the the Sunrise River WMO proposal and give directions to Mr. Sherbon as to any changes or concerns with the proposed amendments. Jamie?
Evening.
Good evening.
It's always good to see you.
Oh, thanks. I'm happy to review the amendments that are proposed by the WMO Board. In summary, if you'd like, otherwise I can just answer questions. I understand that they're in your packet, but I'm not sure what level of review you've had the opportunity to have.
I think we've all reviewed it. Does there anyone have specific comments?
Yeah. No, I'd say really quick, just give an overview of the important bits for the audience and for
Sure.
city record.
I'd be happy to. There are a number of what I'd call housekeeping type of amendments, bringing the agreement up to current day with state statutes. For instance, there's old statutory references, including some as to the frequency of audits, when those are needed or not needed. There's some inconsistency. On a more day-to-day or year-to-year operational side of things, there are some proposed clarifications in the budgeting process. So, for instance, currently all 4 member communities need to ratify the WMO's annual budget in order for it to pass. A change that's proposed is for there to be a 60-day period for responses, after which that would be deemed approving. Silence would be the same as approving, so that silence cannot hold up the entire process. Similar on the same line of thought is that instead of unanimous ratification by all 4 communities, there could be dissent from one, and the remainder could adopt the budget or move that budget forward. A few other more things more on the day-to-day operational side is that currently the JPA requires that the watershed organization get one-by-one approval from every city for projects that move forward. And there are 10 to 20 things that could be considered a project every year. As opposed, they're suggesting that any projects in the 10-year watershed management plan that the cities review and approve could move forward without that one at a time sort of consideration. The WMO could also pursue grants. Currently, each community must approve for the WMO to pursue a grant, and that doesn't work very well with most grant timelines.
So it sounds like a lot of these changes are actually gonna help the communities not have to approve things twice, like with the projects.
They'll make things much more efficient.
Okay, just out of curiosity, where are you in your receipt of comments? I mean, have other communities had any significant comments?
They have, and I'd like to share those.
Okay,
So of the 3 other communities, all 3 have reviewed this and responded. Columbus was first, and they were in favor of the proposed amendments. They asked the question of whether the other communities would be interested in revisiting the funding formula. In other words, how funds are, or how the costs of operation are split among the communities. One of their concerns is they have a lot of public land and how that is factored into the formula. Linwood was the second to meet, and Linwood was also in favor of the proposed changes as presented. And they replied that they were not interested in revisiting the funding formula. They were sympathetic to the discussion that Columbus had and fully understood. It just felt like there wasn't probably a more fair, and this is my words, not theirs, way to distribute costs. And then most recently, the city of Ham Lake met. I've corresponded with the administrator, and I've watched the video of the city council discussion. There was little to no discussion of the amendments that were presented, so it's unclear to me how they feel about those. I didn't hear any objections, but not comments in favor either. Their discussion focused on their concern about the way the funding or financing is split amongst the communities. And they have a concern that they pay an equal share, or 25% of the administrator, what's called operating expenses, and they pay 3.8% of all other expenses, mainly project expenses. And they would like to see that changed so that it's 3.8% of all expenses. That's based on a formula. It's land area and market valuation in the watershed.
and that's the discussion we had last year or the year before?
2 years ago.
2 years?
Yeah, 2 years ago, and then we had one previous to that,
Okay.
too.
Correct, same issue. The most recent resolution to that was that some budget line items that they felt should not be administrative were in fact moved out of that administrative or operating
Okay.
category. So that was the 2 years ago solution.
I think in the 2 year ago solution, we actually agreed to one of those changes, didn't we? On the operating cost?
We did not change the percent contributions from the communities. No. There was not an amendment to the Joint Powers Agreement, put it another way. Of all of these communities, Columbus and Linwood did approve expending up to $2,000 for the staff and attorney time that would be needed to make these amendments reality. Ham Lake said they would not contribute towards that.
And that would have been administrative?
It would have been like an administrative cost, I think. It's not in an approved budget, so it's a bit outside of the normal budgeting process, but it was being treated like that because it would be equal shares.
And is that 2,000 per city or 2,000 total?
2,000 per city, that's a high-end estimate of what it would take. And part of that is based on the attorney comment that the more back and forth there is, of course, the higher the cost will go.
Okay.
So what's being asked of council, of you tonight, is one, comments on those proposed changes. We'd like to hear any of those. Secondly, if you'd be willing to approve up to $2,000 for those costs, if you're in favor of moving forward with this. And then last, somehow we've got to address this funding formula question that's come up, and feedback on that. It's clear to me that we're going to need another discussion with city administrators and maybe some elected officials to sort that out as we did 2 years ago.
And that's the discussion we had 2 years ago. So they want to revisit the discussion.
They would like to revisit that topic, yes. And it sounds like they are not in favor of moving forward with the Joint Powers Agreement changes unless it incorporates that funding change that they're requested.
So if that's not the case, and it needs everyone's signature, all 4 communities to sign it, right?
Correct.
And if they don't sign it, we either have to live with the existing GPA, which we don't want to, and spend all that time revising,
Correct.
or we're held ransom to meet with Ham Lake. There, I said it. That's exactly what it is, so.
I actually have a question, though. You mentioned something about 3 cities can vote on something, and if the 4th one disagrees, that it's too bad for that 4th one. The 3 will be able to change whatever it is. Does that go for the budget, the funding formula too? Because I don't think I like that. I think Linwood, Columbus, and Ham Lake would be happy to say East Bethel's gonna pay for all of it. You know what I'm saying? And they could do it under this rule. It probably wouldn't happen, but if they all want to pay 1% and 2% and we pay 90%, I don't think that's right.
Well, I would expect that if we disagreed with the budget, we don't have any commitment to pay that budget, do we? You're just setting the budget.
If the budget is adopted, then all 4 communities would need to contribute in that amount. Currently, all 4 communities need to ratify the budget in order for it to pass. And the change that's proposed is only for the budget process. It is not for the funding formula. So the funding formula requires, it's in the joint powers agreement itself, and it requires all 4 communities to agree and sign that agreement. It is the annual budgeting where one community could object to the budget, and it would pass with the 3 others. That's the proposed change.
Okay.
So I think you're asking something differently. I'm gonna ask.
No, I understand. We
Okay.
understand each other.
But from the budget aspect,
I
though,
understood wrong.
from the budget,
Yeah, it's the
in order to pass the Sunrise budget, you either need an affirmative vote from the communities, or 60 days has passed. Is that how your new,
That's a
Change.
That's
proposal.
the proposed change. You would need an affirmative from 3 of the 4, and within a 60-day period. Yes, to what you said.
and if one community said no,
Then that one objection would be outvoted, so to speak, by the other 3.
okay.
There is, however, if one objects, text in there to say, go back and talk it over, right? And that has always been the practice through the budget discussions. If there's concerns, to work those out, and it has never resulted in anything but an approved budget. There have been instances where there's been no response from a community that has dragged the process on for a long time.
I'm fine with that part, if there's no response in 60 days. I mean, it's reasonable, I think. But I just want, so if all 4 communities voted, and there's 1 at the Senate on the budget, and 3 would support it, would the budget pass?
Under the proposed change, yes.
Okay, that part I wasn't clear on, so.
That part I don't really like.
Yeah, because the problem is, in essence, 3 other communities are setting a budget amount that the 4th committee has to pay. So I agree with what you said. We've always sat and worked things out, and that's what happens, but now we're talking about a legal document, so.
And what happens if Ham Lake doesn't agree to this? We go back to where we are now with no amendments, no anything? Or what do we do? Where are we at?
Correct. If Ham Lake's indicated that they will not pass this revised joint powers without the funding formula changed, so therefore it really can't move forward until that issue is resolved, and there's no sense in spending staff or attorney time on it.
We'll just continue with the budget as it is this
Continue-
year.
Yes, continue with the existing joint powers agreement and all its provisions, whether they're liked or not.
Have you had a direct discussion with Ham Lake on this yet?
Not any recently than 2 years ago, what you referenced.
2 years ago, but not with these changes, so.
I've directly discussed it with their administrator and the other administrators,
Yeah,
all in one.
those are the emails that I shared with you, the conversations that Jamie had with Denise Webster.
So they are email correspondence, not direct.
Right,
Yeah.
verbal.
which seemed to me weren't clear to what the direction of that council was intending. So
They
that's
just
why I'm
were
asking.
unhappy.
Have, a meeting like this where you're in front of that council, you haven't had that yet?
No, and I
Okay.
agree that the emails were vague, which is another reason I watched their city council videos to get a better understanding of their discussion.
So it sounds like from this council, the issue we brought up, we've been discussing is this payment, whether the, not payment, but whether the budget can be passed with basically 3/4 of the communities and have, and if anyone dissents, they're just held to that budget. I'm okay with the other part of the change. If they don't respond in 60 days, it's assumed affirmative. That they've got plenty of notice on it, but I still think all 4 communities need to be in concert on the budget, so.
Well, I have no problem with that change. Or that note, let's call it.
Very good.
So, and I suppose the next step would be to get a meeting with Ham Lake, and if they don't want to go forward with anything, there's no use on voting for the $2,000 fees to change anything, or,
Correct. The other communities have given an indication that they would do so. You could do so as well, but
Oh.
the intent is not to incur any more costs than necessary until we
Mhm.
know it's going to be a successful effort.
so. Is there any opposition? If Ham Lake chooses to go forward or they find a solution, is there any opposition to that cost?
Now, are you referring to the attorney's fees?
Yes, the 2,000.
Makes sense to me, so.
Sounds
It's
reasonable.
it's administrative expense, so I think,
Sounds reasonable.
and like you said, that's your budget for 2,000, it may come in less than that, so hopefully it'd be smoother.
So do you need any formal feedback or any formal motion on it, or just our feedback?
Are you referring to the attorney's fees?
Or for any of
Any
this?
part of it.
Well, I think we'll make a motion on the comments, and I'll make a motion that, that the comments as presented tonight in this version are acceptable with the exception of the proposed budget approval process of only needing 3 affirmative votes out of the 4 cities. Is there a second to the motion? Motion made, second discussion. Again, I don't think that would ever happen. You know, these communities got along for years, so I don't think there's any issues there, but just to have that written in there. I'm just uncomfortable with that, so. Is there any other discussion to the motion? Hearing none. To the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. So now you have something to talk about with the other communities.
Do we need a motion for the 2,000?
I'd rather wait to see the Ham Lake sells.
Okay.
but-
And they may be looking for reactions
Yeah.
from all of you too, so I'll be reaching out if we're going to have another meeting on this topic. Ham Lake's question will be, will the other communities accept the revision they're proposing to the funding formula?
They only want to pay 3.8% is what you're saying of the operating expenses.
And
No,
what do they
I'm
got,
not
Jamie,
comfortable.
125 houses on that end of the lake, on the south end of the lake? roughly? I mean, somewhere in that
Yeah,
ballpark, so.
I'd be guessing.
So I don't know why they're, you know, why they're
I'm gonna ask the
complaining.
question, council this way. There's two new council members who weren't involved in that discussion 2 years ago. Do the three of us want to reopen that whole discussion? Because we had like, I know we had like 2 meetings on the whole thing. And we were, and
I won't change my views. I think it should still be fair. I think we still pay more than anybody else based on our.
so your
size.
position is not to change it, right?
Actually, Linwood pays more than us.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, because they've got Martin,
Well,
typo.
that's because
Yeah, they're a bigger part of it.
Well, Linwood pays 47.04, Ham Lake's the 3.8, East Bethel's 29.99, and
But that's not,
Columbus is 19.
that's not their complaint.
No.
Their complaint's the operating expenses.
Well, yeah, the
We're all
operating.
paying 25%,
Right.
Yep,
so.
so basically, according to this, they want to go from $4,500 to $1,900. It's a $2,000.
I'm not worried about the amounts as it is the principle of how the formula is set up, so. But it doesn't sound like there's interest on council to revisit that.
Okay. That's what I need to know.
Yep, I think you should let Ham Lake and Linwood or whoever it is that wants to get out of it, remind them that if Bowser takes over, that everybody's taxes are gonna go up astronomically. I said that wrong.
Yes, and
Yeah, those discussions sound familiar from the last time.
Right.
Yeah, they can
Let
either
them
go to
know.
Rice Creek or Coon Creek, and it's gonna be a different game then.
All right.
correct.
Got what you need?
Got what I need. Appreciate the discussion. Thank you, and I'll keep you updated.
Thank you, Jamie.
Well, appreciate
Jamie.
your efforts, Jamie, so. All right, on to the 2021 EDA report. Julie Lux. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Julie Lux. I'm honored to serve as the president of the East Bethel EDA, and I'm here to give you an update of our activity for 2021. As a reminder, or perhaps new information for those in the audience or watching online this evening, the role of the East Bethel Economic Development Authority is to serve as an advisory body to the City Council. So we review and make recommendations to the council regarding marketing and promotion initiatives for our city. We also promote business retention activities and economic development projects with both new and existing businesses. So, AC Red, or the Anoka County Regional Economic Development, continued to be an important partner for the EDA and City of East Bethel in 2021. Jaquel Heider, who was the Economic Development Specialist, we had worked with her for 3 years, and in March of 2021, she took a different position with a commercial developer. So East Bethel had a seat at the table, and we took part in the interviews for her replacement. So Samantha Markman was offered the position, and she's become a great partner with East Bethel, especially with our broadband projects. And Samantha was on the committee along with some of our council members and EDA members to interview consultants to perform a broadband analysis. So improvement and expansion of our internet service has been a major priority of the EDA. So a contract for a broadband internet service plan was awarded to Finley Engineering in October of 2021. So this study will outline the needs and the process for serving the underserved and unserved areas of the city and recommend a plan and cost estimates to achieve this goal. So staff has been working with Finley Engineering to provide them with base GIS information, and they'll complete their preliminary mapping of the city. And then with this information, they'll be able to present the status of broadband, identify initial areas of need, and begin the process of modeling the proposals to address those areas that have service deficiencies or aren't served at all. So staff will meet with Finley by the end of the year for an update on project progress. AC Red has worked on behalf of East Bethel in other ways as well. They completed a report that identifies the types of companies looking for new locations within Anoka County. So many of the end users are light industrial manufacturing types of businesses. 44% of those prospects would need light industrial zoned property with city water and sewer. And at this point, East Bethel is very limited on lands in which these types of users are permitted. In 2022, staff and the EDA will begin discussions about the possibility of adding more light industrial manufacturing zoned land to attract these manufacturing businesses to our city. So the EDA has been involved in various stages and has assisted and facilitated in the following types of projects during 2021. So road projects include the Sand Hill Parkway Service Road project. The city completed the frontage road that connects 187th Avenue to Viking Boulevard on the east side of 65 in October of 2021. This road, named Sand Hill Parkway, was funded with a $3.2 million MnDOT cooperative grant, $1.8 million in MnDOT municipal state aid advanced funding, and a $1.3 million amount from an American Rescue Plan grant. This road is 0.95 miles in length and provides a vital link between the two reduced conflict intersections along Highway 65 and provides access for up to 260 acres of properties with mixed-use development potential. In addition, regarding the Highway 65 Viking Boulevard reduced conflict intersection, we've got updates. MnDOT has been working to correct signage, lane marking, paving, and sightline concerns identified by the city at this intersection. These details were not recognized during the design phase of the project, but became apparent after the new intersection was operational. And MnDOT's been very responsive and cooperative in working with the city to resolve these issues. Related to the residential market, everyone knows the residential market has been extremely active, and we've had a lot of activity as well. The Viking Preserve project. So all the lots in this subdivision have been sold. 22 permits for new single-family home construction were issued in 2021, and the permit valuation for the 2021 construction in the development was $4,925,000. In addition, Anderson Meadows residential plat is a 10-lot rural plat at Durant Street and 213th Street, and that was approved by City Council on November 8th, 2021. So the street's been completed and one home is under construction. 43 permits for single-family homes with a permit valuation of $10.8 million have been issued through the end of November 2021. Of this residential total, 27 of the permits were for homes served by city water and sewer. In addition, staff has been in contact with 3 developers that have shown interest in properties for residential projects on the east side of Highway 65, south of Viking Boulevard. So construction, commercial construction. So we've had several commercial construction projects, a total of 5, with a permit valuation of $14.8 million were started in 2021, which include the phase 2 of the East Bethel Village Apartments, which is 68 units, is being constructed, and completion date is set for winter, early spring 2022. And we're hearing nearly half of the apartments are pre-rented. And the Panagold Country Hearth facility, this company is constructing a 22,300 square foot distribution center. So they bake the breads at the St. Cloud location, bring them to the East Bethel site, and then distribute to schools and restaurants throughout the Twin Cities area. And we'll have 27 new jobs created by this project. Soda Storage is a self-storage storage facility at Aberdeen Street and Highway 65. And in November 2021, we issued a building permit for a 10,500 square foot additional building. Dollar General on Highway 65 and 209th. The certificate of occupancy was issued and the doors opened for East Bethel's second Dollar General location in August 2021. And lastly, Aggressive Hydraulics, they commenced the expansion of their manufacturing facility by adding 36,000 square feet in June 2021. So this addition will provide 96,000 square feet total at their location on Ulysses Street. So this is a $2.8 million investment and creates 20 additional jobs, bringing their total employment to 85. Aggressive Hydraulics was approved for TIF for this project, and estimated eligible TIF costs are infrastructure external to the building and sewer and water access charges for a total of approximately $200,000. And in 2013, Aggressive Hydraulics received TIF financing for their earlier project, and they paid back the 9-year TIF note in 7 years. So shifting to a major development coming on the east side of Highway 65 with Elevage Development. So the East Bethel City Council and Elevage Development Group approved a memorandum of understanding for a mixed-use development project that proposes to provide 40,000 square feet of commercial space and up to 120 units of higher density single housing on January 13th, 2020. So the installation of water and sewer service and the frontage road has been completed by the city, and we're hoping the developer will submit the second phase of the development in the first quarter of 2022. And in that same development area, it will be the Quick Trip on Sand Hill Parkway. On August 9th, 2021, the city approved the site plan, and the timeline for construction is spring 2023. Any questions on anything?
Any questions for Julie tonight?
No, very thorough overview.
Thank you. Well, it's been great. Yeah, we have had a lot going on, so it's really exciting. All right, well, thanks
The
so
whole
much for your time.
broadband initiative is gonna be
Oh,
interesting this next year.
That's gonna
so.
be huge. Yeah, we're really excited for that. That's gonna serve a huge need in the community.
Okay,
All right. Well, thank you for your
Thank
time.
you, Julie.
thanks, Julie.
You're welcome.
Okay, on to our 2022 budget presentation. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I do have a brief presentation to go over for the 2022 budget and levy. Again, the City of East Bethel has a year-long budget process that commences on January 2nd of each year when the budget model is created. The budget model chronicles the prior 2 years' activity, the current year's budget, and the next year's budget that is being considered for approval. Embedded in the model are updates to salary benefit line items and debt service requirements for the 2022 budget. From there, the city has a series of meetings where the budget is discussed and modified. Again, the objective of tonight's meeting is to provide an overview of the 2022 budget and allow public input following the review. Again, before we get into the budget, I wanted to just go over some financial highlights of the financial position of the city. Looking at the city's most current year completed, we note that revenues came in at 102% of budget and expenditures came in at 97% of budget. This illustrates that our budget process and modeling does a good job in capturing actual activity that occurs. The city has a formal fund balance policy that states that the city should maintain a minimum of 40% of next year's budgeted general fund expenditures as its fund balance. The city had a fund balance of roughly $3.4 million at the end of 2020, or 56% of the 2021 budget. Given this strong fund balance, the city was able to defease 2 bond issues on July 1st, 2021, the 2008A and the 2013A debt issues by using roughly $530,000 of that fund balance. And finally, the city has the 8th lowest taxes in Anoka County out of 21 cities. Again, based on the inputs from the Finance Committee, Personnel Committee, department heads, and of course the City Council, the budget model and budget book was prepared for the City Council to review at tonight's meeting. Looking at the general fund budget from the macro viewpoint, we note that the 2022 revenues and expenditures are budgeted to increase by 5% or $280,700 from $6,200,000 in 2021 to $6,280,900 in 2022. Looking at the revenue side of our budget, The components that make up the 6.2 million in revenue are cable franchise fees, liquor and tobacco licenses, building inspection permit revenue, state aids for streets and other, fines and forfeits, intergovernmental charges, cemetery revenue, tower site lease revenue, gambling tax revenue, interest earnings, and of course, property taxes. The city receives roughly 80% of their general fund revenue from property taxes and is by far the most important revenue source we have. Now looking at the expenditure side of things, there are two primary ways one can look at the city budget. One way is to look at it by object or what is actually being purchased, personnel costs, contracted services, supplies, etc. The city's personnel costs account for roughly 43% of the general fund budget. The 2022 budget has 22 full-time employees, 6 in administration, 5 in community development, 9 in public works, and 2 in the fire department. Of those employees, 10 are represented by a union. For 2022, the union contract called for a 2.25% cost of living increase in salaries and the cafeteria contribution for benefits to increase from $1,300 per month to $1,400 per month. For 2022, the mayor, council, and committee stipends are budgeted to remain unchanged. The city also budgets for 35 paid on-call firefighters, 1 part-time cable technician, and 2 seasonal public works employees. Overall, salaries and benefits reflect an increase of roughly $179,000. A summary of the city's contracted service budgets for 2022 show that law enforcement contract is budgeted to increase by $16,500 or 1%. The city assessor contract is budgeted to increase by $2,000 or 3%. The city attorney contract is budgeted to increase by $14,000 or 9%. The internal transfer to the park capital fund is budgeted to increase by $5,000, and the transfer to the street capital fund is budgeted to increase by $25,000. Now, the second way we can look at the city expenditure budget is by department. The general government classification captures all expenses involved with city governance: the city council, city administration, finance, assessing, legal, and elections. This classification is budgeted to increase by 13% from $1,168,400 in 2021 to $1,322,600 in 2022. The primary driver of this $169,000 increase is the proposal to add 1 full-time employee to assist in the finance department, the addition of election expenditures, and the increased legal expenses. The community development classification captures all expenses involved with planning, zoning, and building inspections. This classification is budgeted to increase by 4% from $612,300 in 2021 to $636,300 in 2022. Again, the primary driver of this $24,000 increase is an allotment for code enforcement assistance and scanning services. The public safety classification captures all expenses involved with police and fire protection. This classification is budgeted to increase by 2% from $2,061,700 in 2021 to $2,112,800 in 2022. Engineering expenses are budgeted to remain the same in 2022 and are budgeted at $40,000. The public works classification captures all expenses related with street maintenance and park maintenance. The public works classification is budgeted to increase by 1% from $1,497,800 in 2021 to $1,519,200 in 2022. Again, transfers to other funds include transfers to street, building, and park capital, and is budgeted to increase by 5% from $615,000 in 2020 to $645,000 in 2022. Now, shifting gears and onto the debt service funds the city has, the city will have 2 outstanding bond issues at the end of 2021 with principal balances of roughly $15.9 million in total. Each year, the city pays interest and principal on each of the bonds. These annual principal and interest payments follow a strict schedule that was determined when the initial bond sale occurred. The city also pays fiscal agent fees for each of these issues, which is reflected in the budget. The budget reflects a decrease from 2021 to 2022 from $1,123,175 in 2021 to $904,000 in 2022. So putting together both of our levies, the general fund and the debt service levy, in order to fund the general fund expenditures, the levy is projected to increase by 6% in the general fund, or the general fund levy, from $4,836,000 to $5,104,200. The debt service levy is projected to decrease by 16%, going from $1,104,500 to $928,000. So again, taking both those levies and adding them up gives us our total change in the levy for 2022. So the total levy is proposed in this final budget to increase by 1.5% from $5,940,500 to $6,032,200. The other levying authorities within the city are its Economic Development Authority and its Housing Redevelopment Authority. The goals of the EDA, again, Julie did a good job going through the summary of 2021 activity. The goals of the EDA are to encourage redevelopment activities, achieve commercial development, and encourage development of housing within the city. The EDA levy is budgeted to increase to $136,200 in 2022. The East Bethel Housing and Redevelopment Authority's purpose is to provide a sufficient supply of adequate, safe, and sanitary dwellings and address substandard, slum, or blighted areas existing within the city. The HR levy is budgeted to increase to $77,000 in 2022. Now, looking at the city's historic levy increases from 2015 to 2022, you will note that the average levy increase is roughly 2.1%. The Consumer Price Index, the index that measures inflation, saw inflation at roughly 1.9% during that time frame. Again, now thus far in 2021, the CPI has measured price increases at about 6.7%. Also released by the League of Minnesota Cities, they released a summary of what local governments were proposing for levy increases for 2022, and the average was roughly 6.6%. With that, all stakeholders should have received their 2022 proposed tax statement in the mail from Anoka County. A couple of reminders that your overall tax decrease is controlled by a number of different factors. Your taxable market value increase in relation to the entire city, the city levy, the county levy, and the school district levy. With that, the city council will welcome any public input on the budget. I know there's one gentleman here who would like to speak, so if you wanted to come to the podium and
Okay, we'll open the meeting for public comment on the budget. If you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, please come forward to the podium. State your name and address. You're first.
One thing is just a good summary, by the way. One thing is just a matter of housekeeping. That's in the East Bethel.
Could you state your name and address to start?
Oh, sorry. Kevin Lewis. I live at 166 Colleen Street, Northeast, south side of Coon Lake.
Okay.
In the bulletin, when it came out, I almost drove up here today because it says, you know, this is a summary budget, a complete budget may be examined at East Bethel City Hall. It's also available online in the packet for the meeting. So maybe you want to add that in the future and direct people to the website, because it's a good website, might as well use it. I just had a general question. It's kind of funny it wound up being in the meeting that is recorded. It's ironic to me that the public forum isn't recorded and put online as part, you know, along with even if it was a separate thing from the city council meeting. Why is that? Because the public forum used to be like the comment period. They were part of the meeting, going back some years.
The public forums are recorded.
Where are they? Because I looked.
But they're not presented for. There's no video that's presented online.
Well, then they're not available. That's what I'm getting.
Well, one you can attend, like you were here,
What?
or you can request a copy of the video.
Well, that's what I mean is, if it's a public forum where people are commenting, you would think you would want other people who live in the community to be able to hear what other residents are commenting about. And the only way you could do that is if it's available either by YouTube I don't have Midco, so, you know, I don't know about that, or Channel 10, or whatever that stuff is, but it could be available just as a small thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a discussion council had a year or two ago.
What was the rationale? I'm just curious.
There was
Just
a lot
curious.
of things that were going on. It was.
Were people getting up here and swearing and all kinds of stuff? or-
No, but it was being grandstanded. It wasn't
Oh.
being used for a purpose intended.
Oh,
So, and by taking it off TV, that changed, and we stayed more focused now, so.
okay, I wanted to thank you, because my other thing was if someone could, because I wasn't aware of all this budget development process in the course of the year. I don't know why, but I wasn't. And I wanted to know what the process was, and you gave a pretty good summary of it right off the top. As far as the budget itself, I don't know who here was on the city council. I know you were, but I don't recall everybody who was a year ago, June. But I appealed my property tax valuation, which went up like $58,000 in 1 year. And I've had a lot of discussions with Ken Tullifson over the years about his idea of valuations. I used to do valuations and was in real estate and stuff, so I'm somewhat familiar with it. And there seems to be a misconception among people that if your house is valuated by a municipal entity, that supports the asking price, which is a complete misnomer, that the two aren't related at all. So I've always fought back on my property valuation, particularly being on lakefront. I'm quite satisfied that I give my fair share of donation to the municipality. And I was denied by this council. And so I went to the Board of Equalization and they granted it. And I had my taxes rolled back and stuff, just like they should have been. But when you've been through something like that, you tend to start feeling like you're viewed as a piggy bank. And it makes you much more attuned to fiscal conservatism. You know, just it's kind of natural, actually. People I've always noticed in life, and I've been around 67 years, people are much more willing to spend other people's money than they are their own. And so as the guy who contributes a fair bit, I just want to know that things are run efficiently. And another question is, I seem to recall back in the days when Doug Sell had your job, because I remember coming up here about 15 years ago, and I was upset when I saw what Mr. Sell was making, when you include salary, cafe, para, deferred compensation. I mean, the list goes on and on. I said, what in the world? This is a town the size of Mayberry. It's not a division of General Mills. You know, what's the deal with this compensation? And I remember at that time, maybe it was because Doug was the only person in city administration, but I knew exactly what the costs were. Now it's lumped together. It can be city administration, but it's all full-time employees, all part-time employees, not broken out by person. And it's the same way in every division. And I think it would be better from a taxpayer standpoint, from the standpoint of transparency, if things were broken out completely. And I know that's, you know, kind of a drag if you're the person whose salary is being shown to everybody, but you know, that's just the price of working for a municipality. It has to be really clear. And people have to be able to comment with facts in hand, that's all. So that's all I gotta say. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks.
To add to that, I'm pretty sure we've seen those numbers of what every employee makes. I can't remember where they were included,
It's
but
not in our budget book.
It's not in the budget book.
It's not in the
no.
budget book.
yeah, but I thought that
I think we've seen that.
we've seen
Yeah.
them and
Yeah.
It's supplied when we do the union negotiation.
I'm sorry, Jack?
It's supplied when we do the union negotiation.
Yeah, that's probably when we saw it.
okay.
Is that something we see though?
You can request that information, we'll be glad to give it to you.
know it's available.
It's public information.
Well,
Just gotta make it. There's a formal form to fill out. It's actually
Ju-
pretty
ju-
simple,
Just send me an email, Kevin, and I'll get that to you.
but you need it.
That's humorous. I'll talk to you after the meeting.
Is there anyone else here tonight regarding a budget? Okay, if not, we'll move on for the public comment, and we've got three resolutions in front of us.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-81, setting the final property tax levy and budget for 2022.
Second.
Motion made and second, discussion. Hearing none, to the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
That motion passes.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2021-82, setting the final 2022 EDA levy and budget.
Second.
Motion made and second, any discussion?
I actually have a question. Where does the money go from this budget? Because my understanding is the EDA brings the city a lot of money through permit fees and stuff like that, but what is this money spent on? How does that work?
Essentially, the EDA budget is mostly spent on staff salaries that support the work of the EDA. It funds part of my salary, Stephanie's salary, Carrie's salary, Mike's salary, and another support person,
So is that in addition to the salary that?
No,
was posted?
none of these are in addition to. Everybody has a base salary. Anything is transferred into that pays a portion of it to cover their costs for the time they spend on that work.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And the EDA funds have also been spent on some projects for the city. I think wasn't some funding used for the business retention and expansion program?
Yes, there is money in there for special projects and to cover some of those things. The business retention program was one of them. There's also been some EDA funds used in smaller amounts to provide some gap financing for some of the water and sewer projects that we've done.
And I think we've also spent it on marketing materials and going to trade shows, marketing the city, some other various items like that.
Is the broadband contract part of that in here?
That's correct. The broadband contract will be paid from the EDA funds.
Thanks.
I got a question. Mike, showed that the general levy's going up 1.5%. But what is the aggregate levy increase? Because our tax statements are broken up that way, our tax statements just say city.
Yep, so the general levy and the debt service levy is that 1.5%. If you were to add them all up, the general levy, the debt service levy, the HRA levy, and the EDA levy, that is 1.9% increase.
Okay. So we're still below 2%.
Correct.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Well, I just want to say a comment. We're below 2%, but didn't we drop off some levies or bonds this year? So that's where that 5% was coming from.
Correct, yep. So essentially, we paid off 2 bond issues, and that allowed us to look at hiring a new employee then for the finance department, and that then kind of funded that for 2022.
And what did we figure the savings was by doing that?
I think it was the debt service portion.
Yeah.
It was roughly 240,000.
Yeah, so it was significant savings. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, to the motion, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. One more.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-83, adopting the 2022 HRA budget and levy.
Second.
Motion made second, discussion.
What's the percentage this one's going up?
11%, I believe.
5%?
I believe it's
11%.
Where does this money go?
Same where the EDA goes. It's funds that we use to support housing projects, or in our history, it's been used to support infrastructure for Cedar Creek senior living housing and for other areas that have potential projects for residential development. Most of this money goes for staff salaries to cover their time spent working on these projects.
and give a little history on it. East Bethel, didn't the city of East Bethel go to court to get control of these funds from the county? And so that we could decide how much we get taxed, and then we decide where the money goes. Because before the county had control of it, they set the tax level, all the monies went to the county for projects, whether they were East Bethel related projects or not.
No, that's correct, Brian. Even though our funds were kept in a separate account, the county controlled that. They set the maximum levy for the HRA. They retained 15% of those funds for their administrative costs, and then we had to apply for them to spend our money. So the city sued the county in 2010, I believe. That case was settled sometime in 2011, and at that time, we were recognized as our own separate HRA. And since that time, our levies have been lower. When we did have a fund balance of about $700,000, and that was used to extend water and sewer service to the Cedar Creek Senior Living Project.
Yeah, and so we're, right now, because we did spend a lot of that money, we are looking to rebuild that fund for future projects.
So why is it going up 11%?
11% is only $8,000 on that.
It's still 11, the number 11% just sounds like it's, even if it was $100, 11% is like a large percentage for something to
Did-
go up.
Yeah, did we not increase the contribution to start building up that fund again?
That's what we've
I
done.
think that's the discussion we had earlier
That-
this year.
that's
That's
correct.
why that's going up that amount, so.
Yeah, well, what's the current balance of that, Mike?
Set,
Current balance. $135,000. Your EDA balance is 73,000. And that's what the current December settlement now hitting it too, so that's kind of where it'll end the year now.
And so we're only raising the HRA $8,000.
Is to continue to build up that fund.
Yep.
Potential projects, yep.
Yep.
Okay, I get it. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none. To the motion, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. And that wraps up our presentations. Mike, if you can hang around for consent agenda for just one moment, we'll move on to consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt tonight's consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
I'd like to pull item B as
Say it
in
again.
boy. I'd like to pull item B as in boy.
Okay.
I'd like to pull items C and E.
I'm sorry, you say D and E?
C and E.
Okay. I had E as well, so. Any other discussion? Okay, to the motion as revised, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Brian, item B.
These are the minutes from November 22nd. There's just one grammatical change on page 4 of 6 of the meeting minutes, or page 141 of the council packets. About halfway down, states, Mundell stated if the council still held a work meeting with the 3 remaining council members, could the Voss and Urkel submit their comments?
Could the
Could the Voss?
Could the boss.
So I'd propose removing the in front of Voss.
I don't know. I didn't have any problem with that. So it's like the Ohio State University, I guess.
I read right over it.
So if there isn't any other changes to item B, or discussion, I will make a motion to approve it with that one change.
I'll second that.
Motion made second. Any further discussion? Hearing none to the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Suzanne, item C.
Well, items C and E are pretty much the same, my same question. There's one-time transfers of 1,300 to cover expenses of staff. Is that like a bonus, or is that just in addition to, that's what we were talking about?
Yeah, it's the same concept as the transfers to the EDA and HRA. Essentially, we track the time that I spend and Jackie spends processing these TIF-related expenditures, and then at the end of the year, we just say, okay, this is the time we spent, and then let's bill back these districts. It's not a bonus or any kind of additional compensation
Got
for any
it.
of your employees.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve item C and item E
Okay,
of the
why
consent.
don't you just,
Oh, I can only
just
do
make it
one?
C, yeah.
Item C of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion? Hearing none, to motion, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any
I'll make a
opposed?
motion to approve item E of the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Yes, I have a question. Why with the dash 84 resolution, that transfer, it cites 41,000 and change for administrative expenses, but then on the next TIF, it's $459,000 in administrative expenses. Is that correct?
Yeah, I question that as well. I took that right from the TIF plan, so I would have to go back and kind of see what, how Ellers kind of came up with that number for the administration costs. But
What's
yeah,
included in administrative expenses?
just all expenses related to the annual maintenance of the district. So the TIF reporting, any kind of tax settlement money that comes in, the pay-as-you-go, any type of compliance for the requirements they need to meet in order for the TIF money to go back. But yeah, I'd have to go back and double check that.
Yeah, I know this is a larger TIF value,
district,
but
yeah.
it's not a percentage of the TIF value, is it?
It is there's an allowable, it's 10% of the overall TIF money that comes, and it's all gonna be based upon the duration of the district as well, so
Do you remember offhand what the total TIF on this one was?
not offhand.
I thought it was only a couple $100,000.
Yeah, I'll go back and double check to make.
This seems like it's more than the actual TIF.
Right, you know,
Should we table this?
no, it's, the 1,300 is the only part we're transferring. That is just the total allotment that I have in there that the TIF plan says.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, it's listed as a whereas, so I guess it's not critical, so. All right, any further discussion? Yeah, if you can clarify and let us know what it should be, so. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
On to new business. This will be our planning commission. Good evening, Stephanie.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. All right, thanks for your patience as we were switching over here. So the first item on the Agenda 6.0 A.1 is a private kennel license for the keeping of 10 dogs over the age of 4 months of age for the property located at 711 221st Avenue Northeast, the applicant being Kristen Smith. Kristen Smith held the interim use permit, or we call them IUPs, for the keeping of 10 dogs over 4 months of age on her property since 2002. Due to recent events, the city attorneys determined that a private kennel license is separate from IUPs,
And the only instance in which an IUP should be issued for kennels is for a commercial kennel. Therefore, a private kennel license will be issued instead of an IUP. The property is located, or is 14.33 acres in size. City code does regulate kennel license. The ordinance states the maximum number of dogs allowed with a private kennel license is determined by the number of acres. Therefore, it says properties with 10 acres or more, they can have a maximum of 10 dogs. The Planning Commission held the public hearing at the November 23rd, 2021 meeting. 2 neighbors expressed concerns regarding barking dogs. Staff did reassure the neighbors that there are protections for neighboring property owners, and if it becomes an issue, they may call staff to address the issue with the applicant. The Planning Commission did vote 5-0, 3 absent, or 5-0, we had 2 members absent for the recommendation of approval. So at this time, Planning Commission does recommend the approval to the City Council for the private kennel license for the keeping of 10 dogs over the age of 4 months at 711 221st Avenue Northeast with the conditions set forth in the attached resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-89, approval of the private kennel license for 711-221st Avenue Northeast.
Second.
Motion made in second, discussion. Stephanie, on the comment about reporting to staff if the dogs are continuing to barking, is that what we normally, is that normal protocol?
Yeah, typically we do like to hear from them as well, but also it was told if they are constantly barking to call the Sheriff's Department, yeah,
Okay.
non-emergency line.
Yeah,
Have
'cause
we had any complaints?
We have not, staff hasn't received any, and that's why we told them just to give us a heads up if they do hear that
Okay,
at any time, just so we know as well.
and it doesn't matter whether it's day or night, the barking,
Correct.
yeah, so it's kind of a misnotion that people have that dogs can bark during the day, that
Yep.
there's no difference in day and night, so, okay,
Mayor Voss?
yes.
On here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stephanie, on number, condition 4, and I believe this is the same for each of these license, where it says, property owner shall have 30 days to remove the approved dogs upon expiration of the IUP. I believe IUP should read license.
Oh, yes, thank you for catching that.
I'll make a motion to amend to change item 4 of the now therefores to read, to strike IUP and instead insert license.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion? To the motion to amend, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Thanks, Chris. Back to the original motion now as amended. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. To the motion as amended, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes.
Right, the next one on the agenda is a private kennel license for 22525 Durant Street. And this is for Litza Schroeder. Ms. Schroeder has held an IUP for the keeping of 6 dogs over 4 months of age on her property since 2016. And again, as I spoke earlier about the changes from the IUP to a private kennel license, her original IUP will now also become a private kennel license. So her property is 9.96 acres. And according to our code, properties with more than 5 acres but less than 10 can have a maximum of 6 dogs. Planning Commission held the public hearing at November 23rd, 2021. There were no public comments. However, a neighbor did submit a letter that was read and became part of the public record, and it's also part of your staff report as attachment 5. The neighbor does not support the private kennel license. The Planning Commission did vote 5-0 in favor of the recommendation. So at this time, the commission does recommend city council approve the private kennel license for the keeping of 6 dogs over the age of 4 months at 22525 Durant Street, with the following conditions set forth in the resolution. And then also with the change on number 4 to change the wording IUP to license.
Yeah, if we make that part of the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-90, approval of private kennel license for 22525 Durant Street Northeast with condition number 4 to read license and strike IUP.
Second.
Motion made in second. I'm sorry, you made a statement?
I would like to object to that motion. I would like to speak to somebody.
Well, that would be out of order. So, I mean, this is at council, it's not a public hearing. That would have been at planning commission.
I was told we could come here and object.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I was told we could come here and object.
Okay. That was instructed by staff?
By East Bethel, and I assume the person was in the planning commission. She had black hair.
It may have been Aaron. I don't know.
So you presented your comments to staff before.
The first time you guys gave it to her, I was working second shift, couldn't come, and I talked to someone on the phone.
So I'm still not clear. Were you at the planning commission meeting?
No, we went down to, we went down to the city hall and talked to the person with the dark hair.
I would assume that'd be Aaron.
Miss McDermott, yes, I'm assuming.
And I was the one who submitted the letter and said, why did you give it to him in the first place? Because I.
So you did provide comment. You're the author of the letter that's in our packet. We have that letter. So we're aware that you object to it.
So that still doesn't matter that we object to it when my property goes right next to their property?
Well, what matters is we considered your comments that were provided. So.
Well, I have one comment to make. Any barking dogs, I'm calling the cops.
If there's a problem with barking dogs, call the sheriff
I will.
and city staff, so. Any further discussion? To the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion passes. Okay,
All right, the next agenda item is a private kennel license for 23001 Highway 65. Ms. Bayard's held an IUP for the keeping of 3 dogs over 4 months of age on her property since 2015. And her IUP is now set to expire, so she's here hoping to get the private kennel license. Her property is 7.32 acres in size. Code specifies with 5 acres but less than 10 acres, there's a maximum of 6 dogs that may be allowed. We have not received any code enforcement complaints against her regarding her dogs. So Planning Commission did hold the public hearing on November 23rd, 2021. There were no public comments, and the commission did vote 5-0 in favor of recommending approval of the request. So the commission recommends the city council approval for the private kennel license for the keeping of 3 dogs over the age of 4 months located at 23001 Highway 65 Northeast, with the following conditions set forth in the resolution. And again, with a recommendation on number 4 of changing IUP to license.
is there a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval of resolution 2021-91 granting a private kennel license for the keeping of 3 dogs over the age of 4 months on the property located at 23001 Highway 65, East Bethel, Minnesota, PIN number 32 34 23 43 0013, and with the condition change on number 4 from IUP to license.
Second.
Motion made in second, discussion. Hearing none, to the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. So does this complete all of the changeover from our
It
IUPs
does.
to kennel licenses?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Well, we got that cleaned up. That's good. Okay, item 4.
Next item is the concept plan for Stone Group Second Edition, located about 20754 Highway 65. So City Council is asked to review the concept plan for Stone Group Commercial Second Edition as requested by Stone Group LLC. It should be noted, there is a ghost plat in your packet, and it's also a requirement of our city code and the 2040 comp plan. The ghost plat shows that there's potential for higher density development when municipal sewer and water is available. However, just to keep in mind, at this time, they're proposing the 2 residential lots that are shown. The property, again, is located in the 2040 Metropolitan Council Service Area boundary. The proposed properties are located within the B2 Central Business on the east side of Johnson Street and the R2 Single Family Townhome Residential on the west side of Johnson Street. The 2040 comp plan requires 10-acre minimums for properties located within that 2040 municipal sewer and water area. At the time of the platting of Stone Group Commercial First Edition, the Met Council commented that 2-acre minimums for commercial properties are acceptable because 2 acres is an average lot size needed for commercial uses even when municipal sewer and water is available. So from a financial feasibility standpoint, business owners will not purchase more land than what is actually needed for their business to thrive. City staff did review the plan. At this time, there were no comments. So here you have on the screen, this is what their concept plan is. And again, it's just very basic concept. They're showing on Johnson Street on the west side, which is zoned for residential. They're showing 2 residential lots. One that's 7.74 acres and the other one is, I think it's 9.6 acres or something like that. And then on the east side of Johnson Street, where it's zoned B2 commercial, they're proposing 5 extra lots. So what's shown up there, the B2-1, that's where Dollar General is right now, and they're hoping to plat an additional 5 commercial lots. It should be noted that on all the lots, it would require variances for lot size. In the B2 Central Business District and the R2, lots without sewer and water connection have to be 2 acres in minimum size. However, just to keep in mind, in the B2 Central Business, this is something that, again, that we did speak with Met Council when this came forward last year, and they do understand that even with municipal sewer and water, it's typical that businesses need about 2 acres anyways in size. In your report, there is a table put together with the proposed lot sizes, what the lot size reduction would be, what the proposed lot widths are, and then what the lot width reduction is. There's one lot, B2-2, that is being proposed. Oh, actually, it's B2-3, excuse me, I misspoke, is a flag lot, and flag lots are prohibited within our city code. So the next steps would be based on the feedback received on the concept plan, the developer will modify the plans and make the application for the preliminary plat. We did have a public hearing on this, Planning Commission did on November 23rd of 2021. There was public comment more so regarding the residential lot layouts, just how the 2 lots looked, and they did look a little bit at the ghost plat, but we kept those comments at a minimum since it really is just addressing these 2 residential lots. The planning commissioners had very little comments. However, they did not support the flag lot of that B2-3. So at this time, staff is requesting the city council informally advise the developer on adjustments to this plan And Bruce is here this evening if you need to ask any questions to him. And again, concept plan is just informal comments. They gather the comments and then put together the preliminary plat.
So do we need any approval or,
Well,
or a motion, I should say?
I think, let's just work on feedback first. I don't think you need a formal
No,
motion.
no
There's
formal
no
motion,
approval
just-
process for
Okay,
concepts.
so we don't need a motion to open up for
No,
discussion?
no,
Okay.
so,
Okay,
What exactly is a flag lot?
That's the one if you see up there on B.
I know,
is my
I
cursor
can
working?
see it, but I don't know what it means.
Yeah,
It just means that it looks like a flag.
yeah, it has a smaller,
Looks
you
like
know,
this is
smaller.
Access point.
yeah, we've had there's a few residential lots out there that look more like a true flag lot. That's flag-like, put it that
Okay,
way.
I
so.
get it.
yeah.
Makes
So-
sense,
Lights.
makes total sense now that I see it.
So why do we not allow flag lots? What's the issue with them?
Well, typically, they don't meet our code requirements at all. So at the setbacks, we call it the front yard setbacks, which is typically 40 feet. Your lot has to be a certain width so you can put your house on there. And typically, they don't meet any of those requirements. They don't meet the street width.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we've got some residentials that are not, the portion along the street's not much wider than a driveway. And there's like 2 or 3 of them right next to each other, and they access lots way in back. So we got rid of flag lots probably 20 years ago, so.
Flag lots are something that are not usually typical in any zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
So we're just sort of approving the 2 residential lots on the west side and the 5 business lots, the 6 business lots?
Yeah, just to gather informal feedback from the city council, you know, more so do you support this type of subdivision if they were gonna come forward with a preliminary plat? What are things you'd like to see changed on it? What do you support? Before they make, you know, invest in the property, because once they come with a preliminary plat, they've invested quite a bit with engineering costs and stuff, so this just gives them information on how to draw up the preliminary plat.
So what was your comment about townhomes going in up there?
I didn't have any comments on that. So the way that the property is zoned on the west side where those residentials are, if there was sewer and water available, they could put townhomes in there because it's zoned for that, for single family or townhomes. But that's only if sewer and water was available.
Okay.
So the lots on the east side of Johnson, they're labeled B. Is that intended to be a B2 commercial?
Yes, yep. So the ones on the west side of Johnson, or east side of Johnson.
So what's the, I'm looking at our comp plan, what's the zoning of those properties?
It's B2. So the zoning matches.
Because I'm looking at it, it says the southern end of that's mixed use.
Yes, we just noticed that. The very, very southern end of it shows.
Well, the
it's gonna be
southern
mixed
half of
use.
it.
Yes, so that is something that would have to be potentially changed as well. I'm not sure how it became just that small area of mixed use. I wasn't here at that time with the comprehensive plan when it was being updated, and so I don't have any information on why that
So-
southern area was, land use was mixed use.
So, I mean, I know the answer to this question, but what was the reason, the basis for limiting development in the future Seward area to 10 acres or more? What was the purpose of that?
For the mixed use?
No,
Or
just for
for-
all the zoning. I mean, anything within that area is
Oh.
10 acre minimum, correct?
Yes, yes, and that's actually a Met Council requirement, and that's just to preserve the land. So when sewer and water does come in, it can be
Right.
subdivided correctly for sewer and water hookups.
I mean, I'll correct that. It wasn't a Met Council requirement. in East Bethel, we wrote that in there.
Oh, okay, yes, and
For the reason to preserve that land, so when sewer water comes in.
yes, and it's also a Metropolitan Council requirement throughout the metro area as well.
Well, maybe they followed our practice, so.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
but we did that to preserve this future land, for quite honestly, so something like this doesn't happen.
Mhm.
Because, I'm not, was that 14 acres, whatever that adds up to for those, I mean, cut out the Dollar General lot, but those 5 lots literally could, when there's sewer and water, they could be less than an acre. And I don't agree with whatever Met Council's statement was, that commercial properties are gonna want 2 acres. Quick Trip's not on 2 acres.
No, it depends on what type of use. I think they're talking more of, like a manufacturing type facilities, those type of facilities.
Right, but
not
that's not
small
in
retail.
B2.
You can have them in there.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I asked that because I'm gonna make the point, the reason why we set up the whole, and not this last plan, but the previous comp plan, we did that. Where we wanted 1 in 10 acres with a ghost plat, so the land could be preserved for future development. Because if this is developed like this right now, that's it. There's no more, you're not gonna subdivide these lots to get more commercial in, and particularly the way it's oriented. So I just want to put that out there is that, I mean, going back to 2 acre minimum on this is a complete departure of why we want to preserve land in the first place. I mean, I made that same point when we approved the Dollar General lot, is we're carving out something. But right now, this is all an outlot, right? Is that how it sits?
That's correct, yes.
And the residential on the west side they're not set up, they're not divided like this right now.
No.
It's,
one
I
lot.
think that's a separate outlot, right?
Yes.
Okay. And if that's the case, I don't understand why we would split up that, but I mean, they can divide it to 2 different developments, so. So I just have this concern because, you know, we got the same type of land to the north of 209th, and then another 40 acre north of there, and if they all want to come in and say, well, you gave them 2 acres, why can't we have 2 acres? There goes a whole plan of preserving this land for future commercial development. And then the question that comes with that is, doesn't that affect how our comp plan was calculated in terms of how many users there would be? I mean, because if we're taking all this commercial land and now making it, just say it's 2 acres, you know, with
possibly
sewer,
could.
we're cutting our commercial lots way in half. I gotta think that affects the formula of how we're gonna reach our goals on our ERUs. If this had sewer and water through it, would we be looking at it like this?
Probably
I
not.
don't think we would, so I think it'd just be a waste of. And then when sewer and water goes through here, because it will eventually, just think of what those assessments are gonna be on 5 lots instead of 10 or 12 lots that could have been there, so. I just wanna point that out, because that's a really important part of our comp plan, so. And if we don't hold true to the future planning that we had in there, the comp plan is not gonna work, so. That's my 2 cents. Any other comments, discussion? I'm sorry? If you can come up to the podium, please. If you could state your name and affiliation.
I'm Bruce Montgomery, representing Stone Group.
Okay.
So Larry Fredlin, LFS Designs, is the person that kind of put this concept plan together. He did that with a lot of input from the city as far as trying to maintain the 300-foot, some of the requirements to meet the variances. So I guess I want to clarify, if I go back to Larry and say, are you looking for a plat where these would be 1 acre lots? See, these were designed so you had the 300 feet here.
Right, but my point is, it's a 10-acre minimum the way the ordinance stands right now.
Well, right, I understand that.
Which means you'd have one lot, effectively, because, you know, that's my opinion, and, I mean, I've been here for both comp plans, the last two comp plans, and again, I just want to state that's the reason why we did this, is to preserve land. It's nothing against Stone Group or anything, it's just that's why we set this up this way.
Right.
When this plat originally came in, the business that wanted to come in here was gonna use the whole lot. That was one lot, so that's why they platted it that way.
Yeah, I remember that. But what I'm trying to do is just gather up information for Larry to hopefully come back with a plat design that the city would agree to.
Well,
So.
I've stated my opinion on it, but, I mean, how does council feel about granting all these variances to, against, what our ordinance is and why the ordinance was put there, so.
Well, I sat on the planning commission when we were going through this, and the mixed use, the reason the mixed use was on those two corners is because they wanted to make sure that there would be some type of business property that wasn't light industrial or something to that effect, for the exact reason Steve's saying is sewer and water go in there, whether it's the second or the third. They wanted some land in there that could be used, and we start breaking all this up. It's just, I think I agree that I'm not for breaking this up into 5 3-acre lots, although I don't know how else it could go in there. And I'm on record against the Dollar General too, so, I mean, that's my opinion.
Because we've had, Stephanie, I think you've had calls from the property owners to the north, because I get the calls,
Yes.
that they've wanted to do something, they've got the same issue.
Yes.
They want to break it up into smaller parcels in our ordinance, and we told them that they couldn't do it, so.
Yep, and now they're starting to approach the city a little bit to discuss.
Because they're watching this, and that's my point, is I understand the fact that because of the zoning, you're limited on what currently that property can be used for. I understand that. But when water and sewer do get through here, and again, I think it will eventually, it's one of our areas we got marked for it, that the value and the use of land is going to change dramatically, so.
So, I didn't put this in the package, the city put this in the package representing that Wargo Pond development, so how is this substantially different from that?
I can make the comment. So when Wargo Ponds came in, the city did not have municipal sewer and water. So that was granted under when the city was all, we weren't even on the radar of the Metropolitan Council to get sewer and water here. So, and now we do have the sewer and water, and there's been changes to the comprehensive plan. Now, let's say back in the day, if we had the sewer and water, Wargo Ponds wouldn't have been developed like that either.
Okay, but what's the timing on the sewer and water? I mean, we're talking many years, I'm presuming here.
Don't know. There's no plan for this. I mean, if we start getting, city starts getting pressure, I shouldn't call it pressure, but overtures to develop the 40 at the corner of Sims and the 40 to the south of there, you know, we have to start looking at providing those services, so. I mean, there's already water line going through there, it just doesn't serve these properties, so. To answer your question, we don't have an answer, but
Right. and
development
that's the
seems to go
quandary
faster
us, is
for
we
some
can't
and
do
slower
anything
for
with
others.
the property until we have that answer.
Yep.
So,
And it may be something that you want to talk to the property owners to the north of you as well. Because they've started to express interest too of wanting to develop those properties, and they do know that they would need sewer and water there. So it may be something you might want to talk to them about as well.
So, again, this is, you've heard from me and a little bit here, but, I mean, they're here to get all the council's feedback, so. Any other feedback?
I'm 60/40 on it. 60% on, with the land use setup as we do, we'll be looking towards the future, 40% because I really feel I can very much understand the viewpoint of this particular applicant, that you have land, let me do something with it. But if it doesn't fit into the code as it sits, it's.
I mean, think back, I know you weren't here for that, but you think back to the discussion we had across the highway with the expansion of the storage facility. They were gonna go all the way up to the corner of Sims and 65 and use that property for a storage facility. We worked with them and convinced them that, you know, there's a better use for that piece of land than a storage facility, you know, and that's part of the long-range planning that I think we need to continue to, you know, think about. I mean, my biggest question, if we assume that all of a sudden, all this commercial land, we're gonna go back to 2 acres, what does that do to our projections on revenue for the sewer and water, long-term? It's gotta have a negative effect on it. But.
well, just, speaking a little bit to that, to the residential side, when I was at the planning commission, there was some voiced opposition to the ghost plat. We tried to make the point that the ghost plat was something that the city was requiring us to put in there, and that is in your packet too, following.
What was the
page.
objections for the residential side?
Well, they said, well, this looks like high density there, I don't know if we want that. Well,
It
that
is.
was-
I
that
mean,
was
we
kind of
want-
the-
we
that
wanted
was
it there,
kind of
right?
the point, because the city wants that higher density to satisfy their water and sewer hookup needs at some point in the future.
Yeah, I mean, my comment to that was, I would have thought there'd been smaller lots, because Hidden Haven, they're 3/4 acre lots. And so we're actually going to a lower density here for these ones, so. It may be the only way to develop it, because the way the dimensions
Well,
are.
because of some of the wetland areas
Yep.
and access and trying to lay that out.
No, I like the lot sizes, because it's
Oh.
a different size, it gives, again, more variety and.
Or between 1 and 2 acres. I mean, that's higher density, but I won't call it really, really high density.
Well,
I mean, it's.
Yep,
half the density of the neighboring lots to the west on Hidden
Yes,
Haven, so.
and technically, they're very large lots for if there was sewer and water, because technically they could go down to 1/4 acre lots.
Yeah.
If, it was able to be subdivided that way, so they'd have a lot more in there.
Yep.
Any other feedback?
Not only representing Stone Group, I also have a personal interest because my house is right here. So I would be,
I think we've had these conversations.
I would
with
be a
that.
neighbor to this property, whatever ends up there, so I obviously would have a concern as an East Bethel resident as to what happens to this property.
I'm just wondering what kind of businesses would move out there with, any of those 6 lots. Well, Dollar General's there, but, without sewer and water.
Well, to me, think about classic commercial park behind the theater, because that didn't have sewer and water when it was built. those were 2-acre lots, and to me, that's kind of what we'd see. The outdoor storage is very limited on the B2, right?
Yes, and I did let the developers know that B2, you basically can't have.
Yeah, so
hardly
it wouldn't be
any.
construction companies, but,
No more storage.
you know, there's, they don't need 2 acres for the building, they need 2 acres for the septic, you know?
I would also envision things like dental offices, you know, small medical type facilities.
Well, I would
those
think
types
they
of
would
things.
want city water.
Well, like I said, it eventually will be, but
Yeah, eventually.
it'll be very costly for assessments, because there's only 5 lots, so. Any other comments you want to put forward?
So if this were to go forward, would we have to go through a variance process with these?
Yes.
There's a whole table full of
Whole
variances.
bunch of them.
Okay. That right there is kind of,
Well, again, I'll go back to if we're gonna change, we're gonna do everything by variance, might as well change the ordinance, so, sorry.
yeah. And I agree, I don't want to set the precedent for the
That
property
whole
to the
corridor.
north. Yeah. It's,
Others? So I think if I read council's opinions right, we've got an issue with the lot sizes and all the variances and getting off the 10 acres. Am I
You're reading mine
misrepresenting?
correct.
not very positive as to how it sits.
Okay, any other feedback?
Um,
I'm sorry, Brian.
No, it's okay. Just a question. Is the basis of this concept plan to get the commercial, the business lots, or the residential? Or the,
Primarily the commercial at this time.
okay. Okay.
The residential's ghost plat.
Yeah,
So,
I just was looking at ways that they could do something with it as it sits right now, but if the primary is commercial, then the residential lots don't matter much, so, at this point. Okay.
okay. Anything else? Got enough feedback?
Well, it runs quite counter to the feedback we've received up to this point.
I understand. I understand.
Kind of puts us back at square one.
Was this discussed at all at planning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those
We
are
had a
for
public
planning.
hearing for it.
Right, but the fact that this whole plan was predicated on 10 acres to preserve land, was that discussion part
They
of it?
didn't discuss much of that. They
Nope.
Okay,
just
No.
discussed the
And-
flag lot.
And I don't believe the variances were brought up for it, was it?
Yeah, it was part of the
Yeah, it
staff
was.
report. Mhm.
Okay.
But even before the planning commission, you know, just in discussions with staff and the designer, that's what led us to this point.
well, that's the purpose that you came here, right, to get our opinion on it, so.
Okay.
Okay, is there anything else?
So is he gonna come back with variances for these lots, or is he gonna come back with,
Well, I guess.
Quarter acre
I guess
size
what we're looking
lots,
for
or-
tonight is, you know, some written feedback from the council of, you know.
Something
I thought
positive.
the discussion was going to focus on the flag lot and what you could do with that, not necessarily, you know, diving into the 10-acre issue. But I guess, you know, what I'm hoping for is some written feedback from the council as to, is there a way to move forward with,
As it sits?
as it sits, or as, you know, modified per your requirements, so.
Well, I think the feedback, I mean, you can come forward with a plat, there's nothing stopping you to do that. I think the reason why you're asking now, and I think it's good, I mean, we're getting our feedback now is we got concern over the fact that, and it's not just this parcel, because can't look at one example, we extrapolate that to the whole city. If we do this here, we're gonna need to do this the rest of the city, which is gonna change the whole planning on what we've done over the last 15 years. So it's a monumental change. It's not a little change. Granting 10 or 12 variances, whatever that is an incredibly large ask. So, that's the reason why we had ordinances, so we don't have to have the variant in there. And because you're going from 10 to 2, it's a significant ask. It's a big change, so.
Okay.
But I think council's gonna have a problem with, just from listening to this discussion, they're gonna have a problem with approving it, so. And that's what you wanna find out now,
Not
right,
what I wanted,
rather than
but-
later, so.
Okay, all right, well, thank you.
Great, thanks.
So I would like to say thank you for coming forward with this and presenting it in front of us. And I hope there is some way that we can come to some sort of solution to help you get use out of your property.
Well, we'll have some additional discussion and we'll be back.
Good, I very much look forward to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So that's it for community development. No department reports. On the staff report,
We have a couple things on staff reports. The first thing I would like to update council on, and Suzanne had asked a question at the last meeting about where we were with the service road budget. The project bid was $6,100,000. And it looks like now we're gonna be coming in about $200,000 under budget on that, which means we can reallocate those funds back to our advanced funding that we use, reduce that down, so we'll have more available funds to do some of the projects. Even though it didn't put us back any, it'll still give us a little bit more flexibility. So right now, we're looking at coming in about $200,000 under budget.
good. And that's totally, we've paid everything else off on that.
That's correct. That's correct.
Good.
So, the next thing we have to report is Stephanie's gonna give some updates and requests for some partial letter of release for an MOU for Elevage. We'd sent some things out. There was a flurry of activity beginning late Friday afternoon, continuing on through the day, even up until about 4:30. I think we sent most of this stuff out this morning, so I'll let her make this presentation.
All right, I have this, and then I have another one, another community development one after this, so. On Wednesday, December 15th, 2021, Quick Trip is scheduled to close on the Lot 1, Block 1, Elevage First Edition. And as part of the closing, Quick Trip required a letter from the city stating the obligations of Elevage EB Holdings have been met. As part of the closing, since Elevage has fulfilled the obligations of the Memorandum of Understanding, Quick Trip is requesting the city to partially release the MOU as they relate to their property Quick Trip will be purchasing. And the reason why it's a partial release is because the MOU is actually for the Quick Trip lot, and then also there's two other outlots, Outlot A and Outlot B, I believe. So what this would be is releasing that Lot 1, Block 1 Quick Trip site. So this morning, a copy of the drafted letter and the partial release of the MOU, which was drafted by the developer's attorney, was emailed to the city council and the city attorney for review. The city attorney did review the document, and on the dais in front of you, I have his comments on there. I believe I highlighted them in yellow. So it's very small changes to it. It's the highlighted yellows on there is what he changed on it. One of them is he put in signature lines for the mayor and also for Jack Davis. I don't know if you guys have any questions on that one.
And they added the sentence on E, right? Those are the two changes?
Correct, yes. Now I found my parcel. So yes, so the parcel release, that our city attorney's changes highlighted in yellow on E, adding that information, then also adding signature spots for the mayor and for Jack. And I also did show those changes to the developer's attorney, Mike Mergens, and he was fine with them as well.
And all they do is make clear that the release only applies to the Quick Trip lot.
So you're asking us to approve the document partial release of memorandum of understanding?
Yes, that's correct.
And it's the one that's highlighted.
It's the one that's highlighted.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the partial release of memorandum of understanding for, with the changes as noted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none to the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
And then the next one, in regards to also Elevage and the Quick Trip site. So this evening, probably about 5 o'clock, the developer's attorney submitted what's called a Certificate of Compliance and Acceptance in hopes of approval of that as well. Quick Trip is requiring the Certificate of Compliance, and that would be for the Planned Unit Development Agreement. So I had written them a letter, and that was sent to you guys. Jack gave that to you as part of the email this morning, stating that they had met all the obligations of the PUD agreement, and Quick Trip came back and said, that's okay, but we also want this Certificate of Compliance and Acceptance signed by the mayor and city administrator, saying that we have met those requirements. So in front of you, I have the plan prior to